Welcome, my friends. This is episode 4 of my podcast. My name is Albert, and today, once again, we're going to talk about Love, Death, and Robots. But this time, episode 12, entitled Fish Night. Be warned, there are spoilers, so if you haven't watched the Netflix series, please do not listen. And for everyone else, please continue to listen. So let's begin. This is a very simplistic episode, so I'll keep it short. The episode opens up in a Arizona desert backdrop. We have two men driving in a car, two salesmen, and by the looks of it, not very successful salesmen. The car breaks down, something to do with the radiator, and something to do with water. After a bit of back and forth, the old man decides that they will wait till dawn or a few hours before dawn and walk back to the previous station, called Last Station. The young man gets frustrated, and then we watch a montage of time passing and the young man walking around angry, shaking his arms in the air and kicking things. A classic trope. It's evening time. The old man approaches the young man and apologizes for his previous attitude. And the old man then starts to share his inner thoughts with the young man. He starts to think about life and death. Thinking about how humans have ghosts. And why can't fish have ghosts? Because if the world used to be a large ocean, why can't fish who used to live in these oceans be ghosts in these areas? I didn't really explain that in a good way. He was pretty much talking about how the world used to be covered in oceans millions of years ago, and he wonders whether ghosts can exist for fish. It's an interesting theory. But anyways, night falls, and then something happens. Gravity changes. Magic starts to flow in the air, or something supernatural starts to occur. And the two men wake up and they see prehistoric fish swimming all around the car. But there's no water. It's still the open desert. They get out of the car and they start to experience the marine life swimming around them or swimming through them like ghosts. The young man gets very excited and runs off, chasing after these schools of fish. The old man warns him to come back, but of course the young man is not listening. The young man gets to a small, tiny hill and notices that his shoes are floating. And based on that, he rips off all his clothes, yells into the air, "I want to swim," and leaps into this bubble reality, this place where ghostly images of fish can swim. And he joins them. And he's floating in the air, as if gravity has no grip on him. The old man yells for him to come back, but the young man can't hear him or is not listening. And out of nowhere, to the old man's horror, a large red prehistoric shark appears and starts swimming towards the young man and the fish. The fish swim away and leave the young man exposed mid-air. And before the young man can do anything about it, the large shark grabs him by the legs and swallows him and kills him. And the last scene is the old man staring in horror of the death of his friend or his son. And that's the end of the episode. Very simplistic episode. Interesting though. Let's unravel this. I probably didn't explain the episode perfectly. However, there is some interesting things to point out. The theme of the episode seems to be a balance of youth versus old, the classic American father and son trope, or old employee versus young employee. or previous generation versus current generation. The conversation seems to be about the old man not regretting life, but feeling that he's been left behind. And the young man seems to have this emotional, uh, perhaps unrealistic point of view about the world, and that he sees things as merely a point of attitude. With the right attitude, you can have the right level of success. Now, there's not much wisdom behind that, but it makes sense in certain ways. Now, the scene with the fish, the visuals were fantastic. It really created this ancient marine feeling to the entire area. And for me personally, I found it just a fantastic visual of what the world used to be like. Well, a fantastic dream of what the world used to be like. I couldn't really unravel the idea of why the young man ran off and suddenly started ripping off his clothes and jumping as if he knew he could jump into a non-gravity situation. But I guess perhaps that's a metaphor for something. That is it, the fact that the young man, in a way, didn't take the consequences of his actions into account? And was it some kind of metaphor for overindulging and swimming out in some kind of environment, naked and vulnerable without thinking, becoming like a victim of reality? I don't know. It was a tough one. It's either there's no real metaphor to the episode, or it's a really deep episode. You know, it's one of these episodes. If you watch it enough, and I've watched it maybe 5 or 6 times, if you watch it enough, you think there's a greater message to the episode. But am I looking too much into it? Am I looking for messages? Because I've experienced such profound messages from the previous episodes of Love, Death and Robots. This may be just a visual episode with just nice visuals and nice music. It's funny though, because the young man rushes off and he seems to become deaf to the old man. Now, one could see this as the old man being a bit more hesitant, being wise from having a longer life, so he doesn't rush forward based on his emotions, based on this visual pleasure that the young man is running towards. But there seems to be a certain level of yearning, mass desire, when the young man yells out, "I want to swim." Now, it's just the explosion of that desire, as if he's not thinking, as if he just wants to get that hit of pleasure without worrying about the consequences, taking risks without thinking, not considering that maybe just being with the fish was enough. Like the old man was happy just to see the fish and experience the fish. He didn't have to join in with the fish. And the consequences was that because the young man didn't think about what was really happening, that, didn't take into account any form of danger, that the shark got him, or reality got him in the end. So one could say that it's not his fault, but he didn't really listen to any other person but himself. He just followed his feelings. So it's an interesting one. I want to see greater meaning in this. But maybe I'm hoping for greater meaning within the episode. But saying that, such a simplistic idea. Such a simplistic. It's one of these one-off episodes that you feel just can't be expanded upon. The moment was just magical. Now, speaking of the magic or the science, it's an interesting thing. It's a combination of there seems to be some change in gravity, but at the same time they're using the old trope of the radio interference and the lights in the front of the car flashing as if some kind of supernatural thing is happening. As the moment progresses, you start to maybe think that there's more of a dimensional thing happening. Is this more of a fringe science dimensional thing happening? It's never explained, which frustrates me, but you can't really get all the answers. But a good episode. I love the voices of the old man and the young man. They're really balanced really nicely. The music of the episode really, really enhanced the moment at the end with the fish and the shark. And it had a beautiful, lonely ending. Thinking now, maybe I read on a forum that someone said that maybe the young man wasn't even there, and it was just the old man driving along by himself, and he was imagining his younger self being more of a risk taker. This was a manifestation of his own, desire to be young again, to be impulsive, to be able to indulge pleasure like he used to as a younger man. But once again, I feel like that someone's looking into it too much. I think the young man was real, so I'm gonna drop that theory. Well, I'm all out of coffee. I'm about to eat my biscuits. But yeah, a good episode. It definitely has rewatch value, just to see the visuals at the end. Well, I hope you liked my episode, and I hope you enjoyed my random theories on it. I hope you listen out for episode 5, which is coming out in the next 2 days. I hope you have a good day. Thanks for listening, and see you later.